Hello, I am Dr. Kayleen Asbo, and I want to invite you to Weill Hall at the Green Music Center on May 4th, 5th, or 6th as we welcome back to the podium Bruno Ferrandis, our esteemed Conductor Laureate. Our program opens with a rarely heard work by Igor Stravinsky, Opus 3. The Scherzo fantastique was inspired by the writings of Maurice Maeterlinck that described the buzzing of bees. We will certainly hear in this bright and brilliant work the humming and thrumming of a hive. We will also hear harmonies that Stravinsky described as sometimes pleasing and sometimes fierce, like a toothache. Seldom has an early piece of music had such a long-lasting impact on history. And the audience listening to the Scherzo fantastique was none other than Sergei Diaghilev, the impresario of Ballet Russe. He was so impressed by this work, by the young Stravinsky, that he approached him to collaborate. Their collaborations created history. First Firebird, and later The Rite of Spring. Although Stravinsky fled Russia before the Russian Revolution, and he lived most of his adult life in Europe and in America, he had a long-lasting impact on the composer of our next work, Dmitri Shostakovich. Shostakovich travails underneath Stalin, and the Soviet regime are legendary. He wrote a harrowing work, Testimony, about his experiences seeing friends carted off to concentration camps and executed. The work that we're going to hear, however, is of a very different character. Brimming with sunniness and vitality, it was written as a birthday present to mark the 19th birthday of his son, Maxime. What we'll hear in this brilliant and playful piano concerto might be considered a character portrait of this young gentleman. Sometimes we're going to hear his vibrant jauntiness and sometimes his manic energy. Let's listen to the bold opening of the first movement, a work in which the march gives way to rapid-fire repeated note passages punctuated by a snare drum, and then it runs amok with boyish glee. In contrast, the second movement is lyrical, tender, and romantic, spinning out in utter simplicity a theme that begins in the orchestra in a minor key, but is transformed at the piano's entrance into a major key. Was this Shostakovich's way of saying that Maxime was the sunshine of his life? Perhaps. Shostakovich must have had memories of teaching his young son how to play Hanon's famous technical exercises. The bane of every student's existence, they're designed to build finger strength. The third movement of the Piano Concerto No. 2 is a lively dance which is suddenly interrupted by a version of these very same exercises. It might have been Dmitri Shostakovich's joke, an inside wink, if you will, for Maxime premiered this piece, not just on his 19th birthday, but as a graduation exercise from the conservatory. Every student in the audience must have burst into laughter upon hearing this following passage. I want to defend the right of laughter to be in serious classical music, Shostakovich once said. And surely that sense of play and delight is very present in this piano concerto. The finale of the concerto is the equivalent of musical fireworks. As we listen to this, just imagine your birthday being celebrated with such extravagant spirit. The final piece of our season, Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 5, is a musical conversation with the piece that concluded our first program, Beethoven's Symphony No. 5. Both works tell a story that lead from tragedy to triumph, from a minor key through a journey of 4 movements to a triumphant, blazing major key finale. Both works are imbued throughout through a motif that represents fate. In Beethoven and in Tchaikovsky, the motif first appears in the bass clarinet. The fate theme reappears with relentless determination at the close of the first movement, as the orchestra is carried down to the grave in the low strings and the timpani ominously rumbles. The second movement, Andante cantabile, begins in the dark key of B minor, but soon blossoms and opens to this exquisite melody in D major, a sunny key, played by the French horn. The movement builds, unfolding with increasing splendor until the fate motif enters and threatens all once again. The third movement of this symphony consists of a series of waltzes, the kind that Tchaikovsky had earned such fame for in Sleeping Beauty and Romeo and Juliet. But the shadow of the fate motif will persist until we arrive at the finale. The ominous knocking is transformed in a blaze of glory into its major key, triumph. Our season finale promises to be a lush program brimming with playful mischief, sensuality, and heroic spirit. Come to Weill Hall at the Green Music Center 1 hour before each concert to hear our conductor, Bruno Ferrandis, in conversation with pianist Olga Kern. This is a program to make your toes tap and your spirits rejoice. I hope to see you soon. I'm Dr. Kayleen Asbo, cultural historian for the Santa Rosa Symphony.